On October 22, 1895, in Paris, a train drove too fast and probably too furious that it caused 3 deaths, several injuries, 1 major disaster, and of course, history. And what's most intriguing is not the accident itself, but how it happened and the incidents surrounding it. It was like any other business day when a loud bang accompanied by smoke came from the Montparnasse railway station. Immediately, the locals took flight, scampering for safety, thinking that their town had been invaded by their enemies. Their fear wasn't unfounded, and they weren't delusional. It happened that the year before, 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿 Caserio, an Italian anarchist, had assassinated Sadi Carnot, the French president, by stabbing him outside the Palais du Commerce in Lyon. But of course, they were very wrong. Alas, it was an accident at the railway station, and it was a big one. It was to be a routine train arrival at the station until everything went wrong. Train 56, engine 721, a 20-ton iron beast, crashed through the massive train station's building windows into the streets of Paris, killing a mother and wife while causing injuries to some others. This is the story of the Montparnasse train derailment of 1895. On Tuesday, October 22, 1895, Train 56 departed Granville at 8:45 a.m. on its way to Gare de l'Ouest in Paris. At the controls of locomotive number 721 were engineer Guillaume-Marie Pellerin and driver Victor Garnier. It was supposed to be a smooth ride, following due protocols as had been scheduled, but for some reason, they made an unusual stop at Versailles Chantier, and by the time the train departed again, they were already 7 minutes behind schedule. With 10 wagons, the train housed baggage, postal cars, and 131 passengers, including 3 government deputies of the French National Assembly, who were hurrying back to the capital for a parliamentary session. One of them, Albert Christopher, a powerful figure who served as the governor of the Crédit Foncier Bank and a former minister of public works, made an unexpected request that would set the stage for disaster. At his insistence, the train made an unscheduled stop at the remote Briouze station, a detour that disrupted the carefully planned timetable and required additional time to hitch his private carriage to the train. This single demand cost the express a crucial 10 minutes, a delay that weighed heavily on the crew. With several minutes behind schedule, Pellerin had only one goal: make up the lost time and reach Paris Montparnasse by 3:55 p.m., which they did, but not without causing some damage and changing their course of lives. Determined to make up for the lost time, Pellerin pushed the locomotive faster at 45 kilometers per hour to brake late and hard when he neared the station, something he had never done before. As he neared the station, Pellerin continuously applied brakes, only to find that the pneumatic brake system failed to have any effect on the speed. Instead of stopping before the oak buffers, engine 721 smashed through them, climbing the platform with a deafening screech and sending passengers in the lobby running in different directions. It tore across 700 feet of marble and collided with a 60-centimeter thick stone wall before bursting through a massive lunette window, plunging forward and crashing towards the street below, hanging diagonally over the street, nose to the ground. Its coal and water tender dangled vertically. Behind them, the front baggage van wedged itself onto the station's broken balcony. The handbrake of the kitchen car along with the resistance of the derailed cars held the train in place after the accident, while the locomotive was relatively safely hanging in place. Despite the horror of the crash, all 131 passengers and the train crew survived. No one on the train nor inside the station was killed or seriously injured. Pellerin, Victor Garnier, and the stokers flung themselves out just before the crash. Some suffered minor injuries, including 2 conductors, 2 passengers, and the fireman. Albert Mariette, the senior guard, hurt his leg. However, while the people on the train were spared, the real tragedy happened just outside the station. A 37-year-old woman named Marie Haguillard, a newspaper vendor, who had been sitting just below the window when the crash happened, was crushed to death beneath the fallen debris to the extent that her remains had to be packed in buckets. Her husband, who had briefly left to retrieve more newspapers, returned to find the wreckage and realized he had just lost his wife. The noise attracted lots of attention. Some thinking it was a terrorist attack ran away at first, while others ran to the scene. The local police reacted by sending more and more men for crowd control. According to the record, 12 officers had tried to keep over 1,000 civilians from the wreckage for about 2 hours. Later, locals went ahead to purchase train tickets with no intention of traveling, just to get through the police barriers. Amid the commotion, a man named 𝐂𝐜𝐜𝐢𝐝 collapsed and died of a heart attack. Photographers, both seasoned professionals and amateurs, rushed to capture the surreal sight of the train. Among them was a photographer from the renowned studio 𝐈𝐧𝐼𝐻𝐿, who arrived first to document the wreckage. He managed to capture an image now immortalized in history, showing the train frozen in time, its great iron mass dangling over the street. The one passenger who could give a detailed interview was Jules Félix Javelot, an ammunition tycoon who had realized the train was about to crash and calmly told his wife and her friend to jump onto the seats in case the carriages telescoped and severed their legs. Monsieur Doigt, another passenger, said he had kicked his carriage door open so that he and his fellow passengers could escape. When they saw the front of the train had shot right out of the window, they burst out laughing. One couple rushed off in different directions, refusing to give their names. In the aftermath of the accident, the train cars were quickly towed away, with the baggage and mail cars being placed back on the tracks and removed from the station. However, the recovery of the locomotive itself was delayed for 48 hours before authorities permitted its removal. The first attempt to recover the locomotive involved using 14 horses to carefully lower it to street level, but this method proved ineffective. A second attempt was made using a 250-ton winch, manually operated by 10 men. To prevent further damage, the locomotive's tender was secured to the station building before the engine was carefully lowered to the ground. Once the locomotive was removed, the tender was dragged back inside the station and later transported away. Immediately after the accident, the locomotive crew was detained and interrogated to know the cause of the crash. At first, the crew maintained the story that the Westinghouse air brake system had failed to apply, despite working perfectly at the previous station and just before a nearby level crossing. Victor Garnier explained that he had tried to improve deceleration by reversing the steam valves and changing the engine's operation so that the cylinders would work to slow down the connecting rods, driving the wheels instead of accelerating them. He also noted that he had initiated sanding, a technique in which sand is applied to the rails ahead of the wheels to increase friction and grip. According to his report, both measures were taken several hundred meters from the station while the train was traveling at about 65 kilometers per hour. However, this account will later be discovered to be a lie. Engineers later got through the evidence that indicated that the reversal of the valves, which is critical for significant deceleration, had occurred only a few dozen meters from the station. The investigation revealed that the engineer in the person of Pellerin, despite having 19 years of experience, had been attempting to make up for the lost time by operating the locomotive at a higher speed than usual. In doing so, he bypassed key areas where braking was typically recommended. When he finally engaged the air brakes, the system failed to respond immediately due to the train's excessive speed. In this critical moment, he hesitated while trying to troubleshoot the issue, losing valuable seconds that could have helped slow the train. The fireman was preoccupied during this time, but when he noticed they were approaching too fast, he tried to apply the handbrake, but it was too late. The cause of the crash was negligence on the part of the locomotive's crew. The following year, on March 30, 1896, the court gave its verdict. The fireman was fined 25 francs with deferment, while Pellerin faced a harsher penalty of 2 months in jail and a 50-franc fine, also with deferment. In addition, the railroad company was found legally accountable for the crash after much pressure from the public. Under intense pressure, the Western Railway Company ultimately agreed to provide financial support for Marie-Augustine Haguillard's 2 children. They signed a contract with her widower, which guaranteed the Aguillard daily damage pay, full funding of their children's education, as well as eventual employment with the railway company. Life went on, but not for the napping guard Mariette, who died 3 weeks after the verdict at the age of 42. Contrary to what the company had promised, Marie Haguillard's 2 boys were abandoned by both the company and their mother's common-law husband and packed off to a Normandy orphanage. The younger would die within a year, but the elder would survive to give his life for France on the Marne in 1914. The old Montparnasse Station continued to play a role in history after the infamous crash. In August 1944, it became the site of another pivotal moment when the German governor of Paris formally surrendered to the French army. The station remained in operation until 1960, when it was replaced by a new Montparnasse station a short distance to the south. By 1969, the original structure was demolished, making way for the Tour Montparnasse, a towering 10-story skyscraper that, as of 2023, remained the 3rd tallest building in France. In the end, The Montparnasse train wreck isn't just a story about a wayward locomotive crew. It holds a powerful lesson about how pursuing perfection could cause chaos, especially when mixed with errors. Now, let's hear from you. Do you see echoes of this tragedy in our modern pursuit of speed and efficiency? Could today's high-tech world learn a lesson from that fateful day in 1895? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Also, do not forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification button for more insightful historical stories that change the course of time.